Welcome to the Purple Couch Podcast. I'm your host, Puzzle Box Pam. With me are my co-host, Missy Owens and Dr. Manny Rodriguez. Why are we here? Well, I'm a mom that got put on a mission. I have an amazing 18-year-old who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was only 2.5 years old. We really knew something was going on by the time he was 1. But like everything in this world, only those that have access to the correct treatment plan or providers were able to tell me what was going on. So for the last decade, I've spent my life banging my drum and making sure that my child, as well as your children, have effective treatment and education that they deserve. This podcast is brought to you so that we can bring the knowledge of over a decade of some of the best experts in the field to your homes. Hi families and friends, and welcome back to the Purple Couch. In this episode, we're going to really dive deep into early intervention. What is early intervention? What does it look like? And what can you do from your home? So let's dive deep into this. Early intervention is key. I think all of us can agree on that. Whether you're into ABA, speech therapy, occupational therapy, play therapy, developmental therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm going through the plethora, feeding programs within it, speech, occupational, physical therapy. Early intervention is key. So today we really want to just take some time to talk to parents about what they should be looking for. And not just parents, family members, friends, because, it's that old homage that doctors are the worst patients, because when you're living it, we really sometimes put the blinders on to see what's going on in our own home. So today we want to really bring attention to early intervention. Now, what is early intervention? Okay, so I don't like the word normal, because I am definitely not normal. I like to surround myself with people that don't fit that normal box, and welcome my co-hosts, Missy and Manny.
Also not normal.
Exactly. None of us really want to be normal. Normal means, do you fit in that box? When we are young, especially with some of our early intervention kids that we play with now, teaching tactile skills, we have a pegboard. And I'm sure all of you've seen this at some point in time in your life. The wonderful little pegboard's got the holes in it. It's normally like a foam material. And it has these wonderful little pegs. And you take the peg and you put it into the hole. And you push it down and then you can build on top of them. The kids love it. Well, when neurotypical children are imitating play, you'll see them put those little pegs because Manny put a peg in, Pam put a peg in, Missy put a peg in. And so little Johnny and Sally, they're coming back today, and they're going to put little pegs in for us. Well, some of our children will look at you and look at your pegboard, and they'll be like, not having it, no thank you. And they'll take the peg and they'll try to put it on the top of their head, or they'll try to put it on top of the other peg, or they'll put it in their ear, or maybe they will have no attention to it at all.
Right.
Well, that's the little things we want you to key into. That's what we're going to talk about this morning. We're also going to talk about why preschool is so important. School readiness is so important. Moms and dads, family members, socialization of your children is key. We are social beings. Human beings need physical and contact emotionally, communicatively around other people.
Absolutely.
We are not an isolated breed. We're not talking about reptiles, we're talking about mammals, and we're talking about human beings. So when we're talking about neurotypical development, children at the ages of 12 months, even beforehand, start imitative play. Well, for our population of students, sometimes that just doesn't happen. And those are the little key, I don't even want to say cues, visual cues, because sometimes it's not visual. It can be auditory. These are things that, as parents that have had multiple children, would pick up on. But there is not a book that says, welcome to the world of parenting, and here is your ABC guide on how to make it work. Better Homes and Garden used to have a cookbook. and I'm aging myself a little bit here.
I can picture what you're saying.
You know,
I can see it.
The cookbook that was red and white plaid, and it's like every country girl's kitchen has got this cookbook in it. Well, that cookbook would teach you everything from baking bread to making cakes and pastries and beef Wellington. But there's not that wonderful reference guide for us as parents.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because parenting styles are different.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say? I mean, we've got from the very helicopter mom and dads that control anything and everything to the parents that believe in natural child raising. That's more so is that let them live in the environment, let them explore.
Yeah. Free form, free walk, free
yes.
thinking. Yeah.
And it's going to vary too based on like what country you live in, even being in the North versus the South in the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of, I love ancient religions and things like that and ancient people. And even in the Hindu culture, it was centuries that children didn't go to school until they were 12. Why? Because they needed to go out into their environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember playing cops and robbers, you know, and making mud pies and playing outside, even playing war. I mean, we don't want to talk about that's what you fantasized as kids, but that's what we did. You know, cops and robbers dressing up. And, you know, I can remember my older sister dressing up in her Western gear because she was going, oh my goodness, yeah, I know I'm aging myself really, but, you know. And then the time of Buck Rogers, you know, Missy, it's okay. You remember that one. You know, beep, 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 beep. You know, but these are all things.
I don't know that one.
Barney,
I know.
Barney.
Let's tune into Barney just for a little bit. Teletubbies, beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
Same thing. It was just like Will Rogers with the robot that was beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
Now you had Teletubbies, and it's always been one thing after another. Even for my own son, it was the Backyardigans. Love the Backyardigans. And the other day, Loki actually asked me, he said, Mom, was that from that time that, you know, I was watching that movie with the penguins? Happy Feet.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, yes. I still avoid that movie because a lot of our kids that are developing a little differently will watch the same movie over and over and over and over and over and over.
Hey, in my house right now, it's Toy Story 24/7 because of the twins, because they're two, and that's what they watch, and that's what they want to watch, and you can tell that they really attune to it because they ask for it. They go, Toy Story, Toy Story, Toy Story, Toy Story, Toy Story, all day long.
See?
We're all about Cocomelon.
Cocomelon?
Yeah.
See, every generation is going to have this exact same thing, and you're probably dealing with it in your own home. I hope while you're listening to this podcast or watching us that you've also thought of some of the shows that your kids really enjoyed, whether it's a grandma watching this podcast or a brand new parent. We can all find something that our children fixated on. And the reason that I want to bring that to your attention is because as we're going to start talking about early intervention, finding that key piece is so important. Because, like my son loved Happy Feet. Oh, I can teach math, I can teach reading, sight words, colors, all using that movie. And so I want parents to start thinking about how can we teach in an environment that's at home, but using something that our kids really enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
And that is trigger, because now you're getting into their world. It's not like we're, what's the thing your kid is into? Cocomelon. I have no idea what Cocomelon is.
Netflix. It's a big deal.
Okay.
That's our second birthday is going to be themed Cocomelon. It's
nice.
Basically, each episode is about 50 minutes long, and it's just animation. Pretty good quality animation, I will say. And they sing different songs, nursery rhymes. It's all very positive themes, like family support, going out and doing stuff. The animals involved.
Does she have a favorite animal of the group?
Between the frogs, the 5 green speckled frogs, and then they have multiple duck songs that they'll sing. So it's usually the frogs and the ducks.
Oh.
It's Bitsy Spider, we go in between.
Okay.
1 week we love it, and then 1 week we get very angry when it plays.
Oh.
Is about where we're at.
But you see what we're teaching. That's a coping skill.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is a coping skill.
Mm-hmm.
And how old is she now? She's about...
she'll be 2 in November. It's like
so you see, even at 2, we're teaching coping skills without even realizing it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know? My kid also watched Maisie Mouse. Do you
I remember
anything
that
about
name.
Maisie Mouse? Maisie Mouse. I don't know what they were supposed to learn because none of the mice spoke.
Right.
You know, it was just...
Oh,
yes.
It was like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the world of cartoons has expanded.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because think about years ago, us in the Cartoon Express, and what were you watching on Saturday mornings?
Oh, yeah.
And so things have changed.
Well, and going even further back, I mean, if you think about Sesame Street, the puppeteers, and the basics that they were teaching with regards to social skills, social play, kindness, manners, things like that, and what they have on TV today. Oh, very different.
Extremely different.
Yeah.
But it is how our society has changed.
Yeah.
And as society changes, so does making acceptance. And it starts very early and very young. And so this is key. Because between the ages of 2 and 6, any type of therapeutic services that you're working with your child, you've got to remember that the brain of that child is so absorbing everything. You are putting programs into place. And when I say programs, I mean how a child reacts, how a child functions, how does a child handle that stress. You're building these lifelong programs right now between the ages of 2 and 6 that the child will carry with them forever. Yeah. You know, and some of us are in years of therapy trying to rewrite those programs. But we have to acknowledge that this is the time they are being built.
And that's why early intervention is so important, right? Because their brain's developing, they're learning as they're growing. Every day they're learning something.
Absolutely.
And it's like what you wrote in your book is one of my favorite parts that you write is you talk about they are listening. So even if they're not verbal, even if they're not speaking, they are listening and they are learning.
Absolutely.
And we see that every day with our kids in our schools is Johnny may not be speaking. But he's hearing you, and he's learning as he goes. That's why we focus on these early intervention, like social skills, those one-step instructional skills. Can they follow a one-step? Can they follow a two-step? Even though they can't speak more than 1 or 2 words.
Absolutely. Well, and we're going to go into why preschool is so important. That is that knowledge base right there is what do you mean if they're not speaking?
Right.
So when should they speak?
Right.
And this is what we want to be asking as parents, as family members. You know, if this is the first child that's come into the home or the second child, you may have a child that was already a bit delayed and now you're going, oh my goodness, should Johnny be already talking? Because Sally was talking at this. First, we have to tell you that every child develops at their own speed.
Yes.
But it is extremely important to put opportunities in front of your children. The iPad, the television, the iPhone, the Samsung phone. You know, I want to make sure that I'm not being brand specific, but electronics. Yeah. In today's society, we get instant gratification. We are teaching that. It sickens me. And I'll be real with you. There's going to be a lot of parents that may not like what I'm about to say. But I go to the restaurants and I see 2-year-olds sitting in high chairs with iPads. I see children being children at the table and mom digging in her purse as fast as she can to be like, oh, give the phone, just give them the phone. And I'm like, oh, we're learning to be quiet by giving them something instead of learning that it's okay to be bored.
I'd even stretch it out. I mean, if you are a parent or a caregiver, then you go out on adult dates and you're both on your phones. Is that what you see
yes.
I mean, I was out with my wife probably a few months ago, our first date in months, and I remember going and we were just talking, we were having a conversation, and over to our right and over to our left, other couples on dates, not talking to each other at all. And, you know, the way that I told my wife, I said, you know, we can be on our phones and on electronics at home.
Yes.
But this is the first time we've been out on a date, so we literally put our phones on mute and just put them away. But to watch other couples go...
Right. Well, remember, that's learned behavior,
That's learned behavior. And they're probably teaching it to their children.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because if we think about it, if we have 2 adults sitting at a table and we're supposed to be having one-on-one communication with eye contact. Yeah. But yet we're sitting at the table as mom and dad and we're not even looking up at each other, let alone our kids. Yeah. So then, of course, what do you think they're going to want to do? I want to be like mom and dad, so where's my phone? Right. Instead, we should all be sitting at the table together talking about how our day was. And if the child is a little rambunctious, well, then find a game that you can play at the table. I mean, I can't remember how many tic-tac-toe games or connect the box games, just things that we would do to try to engage at the table. And my child was 0 expressive language until he was about 6. So understanding that, it was a lot of, I'm talking to myself, here I am. But But you know what? The whole time he was grabbing onto everything I was saying. He was holding it in the memory bank.
Yeah.
The reason I can tell parents this is because when he did become vocal, and I want to say we were getting ready to move homes. And when I was asking him, well, what were you looking for? And he was like, oh, well, I want a house that has stairs like the first house that had the Mickey Mouse, machine in my room. And I'm like, okay, well, Loki, you were only 2. How do you remember that? You weren't even talking to Mommy about that. No, I like the steps, and I really like the bright paint in my room. You had the Mickey Mouse machine on the wall. And I'm going to let you know, that was an emotional moment for me. It took me back because I'm going, oh my goodness. If he remembers that, what else does he remember? Because you're thinking about all the conversations. You're thinking about what else did he see when I didn't think, because when our children sometimes are in their own world, their own little cocoon, we take that for granted.
Yeah.
And we say things in front of them that maybe we shouldn't. And we talk about life in front of them with other adults when maybe they're not ready to process that. Or in our field, we have parents that talk about, well, when is Johnny going to do this? Or when is Sally going to do this? And what's wrong with my kid? And Johnny's sitting right there playing with his Legos. So let me be the first one to tell you, there's nothing wrong with your child. I'm going to put one of those loudspeakers up as loud as I can and let every single parent know that every single child that comes into this world is here for a purpose. We just need to help them find that. And it may be a lesson that mom and dad need to learn. Maybe that's the purpose of the child. Maybe it's something 10, 50 years from now when we're not even going to be around that child brings to society. So please do not judge the moment that you are in right now, because what you're dealing with today is not going to be anything compared to 6 months from now. We focus so heavily about the problems. And we forget to live in the presence, so I really want to key that into parents, to people listening, is that we need to make sure that we're living in the moment that we have with our kids. Because just like neurotypical kids, neurodiverse kids grow up real fast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting in my own house with my wonderful 18-year-old now going, oh, I told myself I would never tell him to be quiet. I swore I would never do it, but oh my gosh, you are working my nerve, child. But it's those things that if we went back, and I go back 12 years and I'm going, oh, every word that the child said was a blessing for me. So remember, it's just a moment that we are going through. But as parents, even during those moments, remember that you are setting the foundation for your kids. So what exactly happens when we talk about early intervention? How do we know that there's something that's not developing in this wonderful little snake pattern that should be for your child? So I'm going to give you a couple key terms, key things to look for. If you go to Dr. Google, which we all nowadays go to, I joke about that in my book because this was just a thing that was happening. We didn't have everyone have an iPhone. It was still the Nokia phones. Not everyone, there was a time change that happened. Nowadays we're walking around with personal computers in our hands at all times where we have complete access to knowledge. So your preschool program, your even if it's your church, Sunday school, and it's so funny because some of the things that I reference, we also watch as a society we're moving away from as well. I sat down and I talked to some of my high schoolers here, and I just did a round robin table, and it was like, hey guys, how many of you all eat dinner at the table? There were 3 kids.
Wow.
3 kids. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my goodness, really? And they're like, oh yeah, mom makes dinner or dad makes dinner. We fill our plates up and then we all go our own way. And that's okay, but not every night. Again, this goes back to us being, community and learning to sit at a table. I've had to teach a 12-year-old how to use a knife. And when I've asked the mom about it, they're like, oh my goodness, no. We were afraid he was going to cut himself. I'm like, well, when's he going to learn? There has to be a time that we give up the reins. And it's so funny, as I'm getting ready to say this, I'm thinking about Jordan Peterson. And one of the speeches that he talks about is the hardest thing for parents to do, but the necessary thing, is to let them go and experience the world. Mm. We don't want to do that as parents. It says everything. We want to protect them, and we want to shelter them, and we want to hold on to them. But without allowing them to experience the world out there, they're going to lose their soul. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because then they become a robot. We're going to talk about that on another podcast too, because we have a school system currently that's what we are putting into place. Is that every child must fit this model. Every child must fit this box. And if they don't fit this box, then they're the outlier. Mm-hmm. Well, that's key when we're talking about preschool. Yep. And we're talking about little Johnny and little Sally, and how are they developing? Well, we want to watch those things. We want to watch eye contact. We want to watch whether or not they can even hold a fork or knife. We want to watch, can they feed themselves? We have a lot of children that can't do that. You teach them how to use utensils. They immediately throw them down. They go right back to their hands. Mm-hmm. Sign number 1, mom and dads. We really need to work on those pincher skills. That could be doing Play-Doh. That could be playing with flour. It could be playing with salt, playing with dirt outside. These aren't things that you have to have money in order to buy toys for. Mm-hmm. Some of the best toys over our decade have been the free stuff. Free stuff is the best play toy.
The toilet paper rolls.
Yes.
What you can do with those.
I was going to say toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls. Oh, yeah. Rice. How about dish soap? Salt and pepper, dish soap.
We're in the process of eating dish soap every time we get it. It's hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's straight defiance.
And to think that was the naughty. In my house growing up, when we were little, my sister and I, if we said a naughty word, it was the green soap. I'm not sure of all the technicalities on whether or not I'm allowed to say the company name. But it was like if you wanted to use potty mouth, you had to clean your mouth out. Now nowadays it's probably child abuse, who knows? But it was learned behavior that if we did XYZ, or if you talked back to mom, grandma, granddad, you knew you were going to get it right on the tongue. Mm-hmm. And
but learning those consequences, that's also part of early intervention.
Oh, absolutely.
They're learning we got to teach what we call differentiation or discrimination, right? Okay, what is good behavior, quote unquote good behavior? What's bad behavior? What's inappropriate? What's not appropriate? I mean, they're learning cognitively, they're learning how to speak, they're learning language, but they're also learning behavior.
What, Manny? I can't hit you with my pillow?
What? I can't throw that toy across the room? I can't break that chandelier?
Well, what's wrong with
that?
Go
running into the road.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how we go from something so trivial that we look at as to not say that. Don't throw the pillow. Don't throw the toy. Mm-hmm. But then what Missy said, don't run to the road. Right. You see, we're starting with the little steps so that when we get to the big issues, we've already got that response training that's in place. Mm-hmm. So,
I'm blessed with 5 kids, and they're 15 to 2, right? And one of the things that I didn't get to experience with the 15-year-old, because that was my wife's daughter, but I experienced it with the 11-year-old, is that I only had one at first, right? The 11-year-old, she was born, she was it. So I didn't have that ability to watch one kid help train and teach another kid. So now what I see happening is I have the older kids playing with the younger kid, doing this with the pillows. And then what do I see the other day? My son, the 2-year-old, with his twin sister going like this. So it's with early intervention, what I've come to really appreciate is that the kids are also helping teach each other. And that's why we develop and teach social skills. But them also learning what will get a consequence, what will get a negative consequence versus a positive one. Praise versus timeout or something like that. And so it's been interesting as a parent to watch it, as well as a behavior analyst to join the ranks of the early intervention.
Growing up, my mom had the old school mentality. We are taught right when you're getting ready to bring your baby home, you clean up all the things around that toddlers could crawl up on. Yeah. Old school mentality, again, Generation Xer here, was that no, we're not changing the house. You're going to learn to accommodate, to live into our home, into our society, into our rules. So my mom loves to tell the story that I would walk right up to the table and the glass pieces I wasn't supposed to touch. And I would look at her point at it and go, no, 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 no. So I'm like, there's learned behavior. It's already happened. Now, whether or not I would still go touch that item, that's oppositional defiance 101. But our kids do that, and our kids are made to test boundaries. Okay. But we need to be there to make them feel secure in learning, but also set up those boundaries so that they also know there's causality to it. So that, hey guys, we're teaching you this because you could get hurt. We're teaching you this because you're going to build this skill on top of the next skill. And that's really key to all of our families. And that doesn't matter if the kid is 2 or if they're 12. You're still building that knowledge on top of each other. And I think what I want to talk about right now is preschool. And we want to talk about our preschool teachers. I think preschool teachers, especially here in the United States, are so undervalued. They are the first line of defense of getting your child socialized. But they're also the first line of defense to tell you whether or not your child is developing along with the group. And those are the talks that you want to have, moms and dads. When I've trained preschool teachers, one of the biggest things that I've heard is that parents do not want to be receptive to hearing that there may be a delay with Johnny or Sally. So as parents, you want all that information as early as possible. Be welcoming to it. Do not be afraid of it. If Johnny is developing a little bit behind the rest of the class, you want to know about it as soon as possible because you can work on those skill sets at home. Even if your child has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, you wouldn't know by the time that he's a year old. You wouldn't know when he's 9 months old. You may see some cursors or signs, but diagnosing rarely happens before 18 months. So think about this. We're dealing with our children from birth to 18 months. So a lot of this development has to be triggered at home.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we've got to know, what are we looking for? So, key, are they imitating play? If Manny, like he says, I'm going back to this purple pillow today. I don't know. I'm going to hold on. Watch out. I got 2 of them. Now I'm ready. Right, but if we are not imitating play, then that's sign number 1 to be watching.
Right.
I used to have to tape myself playing for Loki. I know. Can you imagine? I don't like being in front of the camera. So I'm setting up my big VHS, recorder because it's back in the day. And his BCBA was like, well, he's not doing imaginative play. You need to show him what that looks like.
Yep.
Well, he could watch cartoons all day long. So he needed to see Mom, because now Mom's not the cartoon. So I would sit down and I would play with and if this was Hot Wheels, take the little car all the way up. Vroom! And I'm just sitting here. This is why I do that in the office. I'm just sitting there, oh, Manny, I'm so sorry. It just hit me. Even now, as I'm heading towards 50, I'm in my office, and Manny and I share an office, and so he'll hear me. I make sounds at my desk. I drive when we were going to film the other day, and I'm like holding back, because again, automatic mom, that you're holding, or I'm like, vroom, vroom, okay, here we go. And I'm like, oh man, I don't think this is ever going to go away. This is the teacher in me. It's just here. It's embedded in me. But those are the things that we want to do as well with our kids. Yeah. And remember, your kids look at you differently. You are the safeguard. So when sometimes your child may be with Aunt Missy, and they're an angel, and they're wonderful, and Aunt Missy comes back and says, oh, Johnny was so great, and he listened to everything I said, and he paid attention to everything I was doing. He was right at my hip all day. We had a great day. Then Johnny comes home, and it's like, it is, toys are on the floor. He doesn't want anything to do with you. He is rolling on the floor. He might have had to eat his snack, and the snack is more in his hair than it is in his mouth. We've all seen those. Well, what does that mean? Well, Johnny did everything he needed to do to be the best version of Johnny when he was with Aunt Missy. But now he's home. And
comfort zone.
Exactly. He's where he feels comfortable and safe and loved and nourished. So sometimes us as parents, and I'm a culprit too, we think, oh, why can't you be like that when you're home with me? Well, we need to change our thought process. And as parents, especially as we're dealing with toddlers, we need to remember that's because they feel safe. That's because they feel loved.
Yeah.
That's because they know that as much as they show their ass, you're going to love them. You're going to care for them. You don't care if it's Henri Johnny you got today. You're like, well, where did my Johnny go? Well, you got me. I'm right here. I just am going to be me for a little bit. And that may mean I have to scream because I'm home and I've kept it all inside. Or it may mean that I have all this extra energy and I don't know what to do with it. Or I'm missing Aunt Missy and I don't know how to process it. So all of these reactions that we see at home, we need to pay attention to as parents, as caregivers, pay attention to those things. So we're talking about sensory and early intervention, some of the keys that we can be looking for. We had just started talking about toe walking. You know, we think it's really cute, especially, you know, little boys and their little pull-ups and little girls and they're like ballerinas in the kitchen and they're toe walking across. And let me tell you, in my decade of working with other kids besides my own, I have seen little girls that run toe walking. And I'm instantly, now I'm going, whoop, we got a sensory issue. But before, I'm like, oh, look at her. She's going to be a ballerina.
Which, that being said, too, it is something, as you were saying, to keep an eye on. So, like, for example, my daughter, when she is not wearing shoes, she'll do it on occasion. With shoes on, she doesn't do it. So it could be, it's a normal kid thing to do at times. It's just how often do we do it?
Right.
What happens if you get denied access to doing it? And all of that.
Ooh, I really like that term that you came in.
Yep,
so let's talk about that because sensory issues are a key precursor of a delay. Early intervention, we want to look at sensory issues. Sensory issues can be sounds. It can be if you see the kid holding their ears and you're like, well, what is it? There's no sound here.
Yeah.
No, it could be the tone and the lights. It could be too many people around them. The next part that you would want to look at is, do they play by themselves? And if you came and took the toy away from them, how do they react?
Right.
And so that's one of the things that Missy's talking about when she says denied access. So what if they really do want that object? What if they do really want that shoe? And they're like, oh, no, I want that shoe. Well, we've got two different approaches. We have the kid that goes, oh, okay, Manny took my shoe. Okay, I'm just going to play with this other toy.
Right.
Let me come play with this other toy. Then you have Sally that says, oh, you took my shoe. And everyone in the entire building knows that Sally is unhappy.
And screaming would be nice because the other alternative, I had to experience this with my twin son, is aggression.
Oh, absolutely.
And deny access my son, Junior, and he is coming after you. With hands, whatever, teeth, and that was at first when he turned 1. Started noticing that, and so we've been working with him on denied access and using social praise and using praise to say, good job sharing with Vivi, good job sharing that toy. And he's all about the social praise. So fortunately, the biting got under control and all that. But that immediate kind of set us some alarms. We're like, oh, do we have some delays? And I think we're coming out of that. So
you are blessed because you have got the background.
Yeah, I know what to look for, and I know what I'm
correct.
What to do about it.
That's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is because even with his 20 plus seasoned years of working in behavioral science, his 2-year-old is having this aggressive outbreak. Now, he's got the tools. And that's what this podcast is all about. This podcast are just parents with some science background, some education background, bringing a plethora of toolboxes to you. I want to build these parents' toolboxes that it doesn't matter if it's their child, their niece, their nephew, their grandson, their grandchild.
On the weekends.
Yes, babysitting. Oh my goodness. I can tell you this, if you've got teenagers at home, autistic parents are always looking for someone that can understand their child. Like I was talking earlier, I've got parents that don't go on dates. As soon as their child got diagnosed, they're like, oh, my life is over.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's the worst thing that you can take and flip the switch in your brain. That child is your lifeline. If they get this diagnosis or if they are delayed, it's not a death sentence.
Right.
Your life is not going to end because of it. Your life is going to be enlightened because it's going to open up so many doors that you would not have been exposed to. So you must look at it in a positive, because we have so much negative that we're fighting every single day, and the children will pick up on that.
Definitely.
And if you don't treat them like they have a disability, you're going to watch them grow with you. And I think that's how I would like to end our episode today, is letting our parents know that looking at these offsets, looking at these little delays, looking at the toe walking, looking at the lack of ability to replicate what his sister or his brother are doing, or what the other kids in the classroom are doing, or even the need for isolation, for sensory overload.
Yeah.
These are all just little hiccups. These are all things that we have had professional experience in overcoming. And believe it or not, Mom and Dad, a lot of these can be overcome in 6 to 9 months. Just putting a little repeat reinforcement in there and continuity.
Yeah.
Just letting them know, I love you. It's okay. I think about our little guy when I say I love you. And I say our little guy because he's just one of our kids. And like I said, I have one biological, but about 114 others. Because if they're in any of our programs, their parents become my parents. I got asked at Rockledge campus the other day, like, you just gave out your cell phone. And I'm like, yes, I did. And they're like, what are you going to do if a parent calls you at 2 a.m? I was like, answer the phone. Like, if a parent calls me at 2 a.m, they don't want to wake Miss Pam up. It's a crisis.
Yeah, there's something.
So they need someone. So it's just like our kids. Even if Johnny's having that tantrum, that means he needs you.
Yeah.
Please don't look at it as he's pushing you away. And all of these little opportunities that you have are all opportunities for growth. They're opportunities for you to bond with your child. They're opportunities for you to bond with your community.
Yep.
It could be a neighbor. Your neighbor next door may have a child that's delayed, and they just may need a friend to talk to. So in today's world, here we are in 2023, we have some amazing resources that are out there. Autism Speaks has been a headliner for years upon years. I brought with me my TACA book because I'm letting you know Jenny McCarthy and TACA were my lifeline when I was going through it myself, because number one, it was a celebrity in a time that all we thought about was Rain Man. And then opening the doors to other parents that could communicate together about what we were experiencing. So I would tell all of my parents today, as we wrap up, to please reach out to your community resources. Remember, this isn't something you have to do alone. Your children are not alone, and neither are you. So until next time, come on back with your questions to Pam in the Purple Couch. My co-host, Dr. Manny, and Missy will be here with us, and we look forward to talking to you on your drive to work, on your drive home, or just when you need to get away. We're here. Have a great day.